Hello and welcome to another episode of Tory Talks. I'm Sam Murray, and this beside me is not Ian this time because it's an International Women's Day special. So we have got the wonderful Carla Hales from up the road, Colchester, who is the prospective candidate for Newtown and Christchurch, and you're standing in the elections this year. So welcome, Carla, to the podcast. Thank you for agreeing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so exciting stuff. So I first became aware of you like I'm a stalker, in 2019, because we were both standing for election and our paths kind of crossed on social media, didn't it? And it's just great to see a fellow woman fighting the good fight, because there aren't many of us, are there? So I'm wearing my 50-50 Parliament t-shirt, by the way.
I'm very pleased to see
it. So how's the campaign going so far this year?
Okay, so I actually waited until today to sort of launch, to officially say that I was standing. I thought International Women's Day would be a perfect day to do it. So I waited till today. I launched at sort of lunchtime-ish just to let everyone know that I was standing. I have been out looking around my ward with one of the lovely county councillors whose patch covers half of my ward, a very experienced lady who's been helping me out no end, lovely lady called Sue Lissamore, who is a borough councillor for Prettygate and county councillor for what we call the Drury ward. We've been out and about looking at things, looking at issues, speaking to people, online meetings, seeing what we can find out. And obviously, we're very restricted at the moment with this type of campaigning we can do. As of today, we can go out and post things, which is part of my plan for this week. Few street surgeries, but even they are going to be done rather differently because you can't have a huge crowd of people turn up to have a chat with you. So maybe we're going to do it with booking appointments. We're not too sure yet, but we have basic plans and we'll see how we take it from there.
Sounds like you've got a lot of plans, actually, not just basic plans, but you're probably like me, just really keen to get out because it's such a weird time, isn't it? Like we've got all this preparation, but we've only been given the go-ahead really to start properly campaigning today. But even with the restrictions in place, we can't do our usual. I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm a little bit hesitant about door knocking and that kind of stuff and get my name out there because people are still going to be nervous about someone at their front door in their personal space. So it's a very, very bizarre stuff. And we've had to rely on social media a lot more, which I think I'm a social media user, as you know, and as you are. But there is an element of upping your game on social media that, as a woman and a female Conservative, makes me a little bit nervous. It's not the same as being on the door, is it? Well, not necessarily. With the negativity you get, do you see that your end of things from social media?
I do. I have to say, sort of blind door knocking can be almost a terrifying experience. You don't know what you're going to find, who you're going to find. Personally, I'm wary of it. You know, we've all done so well to stay at home, to do our best. And I think the very last thing people want, you know, the day, just because we're allowed to do something today, shouldn't mean we are going to do it. I think social media will play a very big campaign. However, part of my campaign is basically saying, don't believe everything you see on social media. And don't. So it's a really hard balance. It really is. I mean, I think we're all getting to know the ideas of fake news, fake anything, fake reporting, fake, you know, generally on social media. And it can be, Twitter in particular, can be a vile place at times. And although 99% of my experiences have been positive, there's always that 1% of people that somehow thinks it doesn't count if you say it on social media.
Yeah, and I'm the same. Interestingly, I feel it's worse on Facebook, but then I think it's because I see the different platforms as very different things. Like Facebook, because you've got your personal profile and stuff, it feels like more of a home environment, and I've, you know, grown up with it. Whereas Twitter, I kind of take the negativity a lot better than if it's on Facebook, which is a strange response for me personally. But I think the first time I experienced the negative side of Facebook was 2019. And that was the day that I was announced as a candidate, and I had 48 hours of non-stop abuse, and to the point where some people were contacting me and saying, your address has been published, so we know now where to go when we want to come and rape you and things like that. And that was really tough to deal with, and I didn't feel safe, even though it's on a screen, and I'm sure the person on the other end would never ever come here. But it was that level of reading it in your own home. You put your kids to bed at night, you read that, and you just think, actually, I don't know whether I'm safe here. And I think other women must see this stuff, and it puts them off standing. But then I think further, I was more aware of the dangers of campaigning when I read the incident that happened to you in 2019. And so that was taking it to another level. So do you mind just talking to us about what happened when you were out campaigning, how that made you feel afterwards, and, you know, what you did in the future, and whether that changed you at all?
Okay, so I was out just doing a small leaflet drop around an area of the ward that I want to represent. It's a beautiful area. I mean, it is just a stunning area. It's got a little pond, and it's just so lovely. And again, I was trying to get sort of social media pictures. I was trying to get, you know, me and my leaflet standing next to this beautiful area. And I didn't hear anything. I was aware of nothing. And suddenly I was being punched and being called a Tory bitch and this sort of thing. I absolutely froze. I had no idea for the briefest of seconds, because it hurt. I just had this awful thought that I'd been stabbed. I had sort of a pain in my ribs, and you know, just this, oh my God, because I've heard that being stabbed feels like you've been punched, and I was like, oh my God. But no, I had nothing like that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to give the police very much because I'd kind of frozen like this, and the incident hit the headlines. Not really sure why. Well, obviously we'd had the dreadful Jo Cox incident a while before that. But yeah, I hit the headlines, and I woke up pretty much in the headlines the next day, on the Thursday. I'd gone into work Thursday morning, and I came home to find the press camped out on my doorstep. The sad thing was I wasn't the only person it happened to. I read of, I think it was a Labour candidate in Great Yarmouth and a Liberal Democrat in, I think it was Bath. So I wasn't the only person this was happening to. I don't really know why I was the headline, but I was for a couple of weeks. And then at election night, I was kind of the headline again. There was all these people queued up to interview me, to ask me how I was. It was strange because I just sort of felt the need to get on with it at the time, almost ignore it and move past it, which I did. I certainly had enough of the publicity. I can definitely say that. But I almost wish now that I'd used the small amount of publicity that I got at the time to do something useful with it. You know, I could have spoken about violence in politics for women, and I could have said this and I could have said that. And at the time, I didn't. 2 years on, yes, I did have reservations about standing. In fact, I've even sort of delayed my announcement because of what people might say, what social media might be like. But I kind of thought, do you know what, you've just got to get on with it and just put yourself out there and let people know who you are and do your best.
I mean, I think it's really inspirational, and you might think I'm laying it on thick to know that, you know, something like that happened and you've come back and not let it stop you. Because I have many times where I just think, is this worth this? It's just, sometimes it's horrendous, and I haven't had the experience you've had. And to know that you're powering on because you're doing it for genuine reasons, you care about your community, it gives me that little extra push to carry on myself. Like, on a personal level, I'm thankful that I'm aware of your story and you inspire me to carry on personally as well. So I just wanted to let you know that face to face as such. You know,
as I said, I wish I'd made a tiny bit more effort at the time to get the message out. The media at the time was so focused on Brexit.
Yeah.
I had various media outlets trying in interviews to persuade me to say I was punched because of Brexit. And then when I wouldn't say that, because I don't know why this person did what they did, they began to lose interest because it wasn't the story that they wanted. Who knows? I put out on my Facebook page today that I'm going out campaigning and I'm going to do letters and things, but I'm not going out alone.
Yeah.
But even that made me a bit cross because I should be able to go out on my own.
Well, absolutely. And this is the frustrating thing, is sometimes you've just got a spare hour, haven't you? And you think, oh, I could just get a couple of leaflets done. And then you go out the door and you think, it's not safe. And, you know, with the use of social media and people are sharing their stories more, there was a 21-year-old lad, I don't know if you remember, he had his windows smashed. And I was thinking, you know, we're human beings, and you keep saying to people, we're human beings. And I had someone approach me as I was walking my children to school and scream at me and call me a Tory C, which is the classic one. And my children don't need to hear that either. And it can be incredibly intimidating. I think 2019 especially, everyone was very passionate about things like Brexit. Maybe people are more informed now, which is good, but also they're more passionate about it. And unfortunately, some people are displaying their passion in very different ways, aren't they? I mean, I personally would do that to someone who's got their children, and I would punch someone in the street. But this inevitably puts women off standing, and women are generally more apprehensive about standing anyway. I think I can't remember what the report was, but it said that men will put themselves forward if they're about 30 or 40% ready, and they're just like, yeah, I'll give it a go and make it work. Whereas women have to feel like they're 100% ready before they stand. And then this kind of stuff happens, and you just think that's going to put off a lot of women. And a lot of my friends who are community activists who would be perfect, I couldn't put up with the negativity, I couldn't put up with the abuse. It's just not my thing. And that's why they won't stand. What do you think we could do to, I don't know, other than call it out, what can we all do as human beings to just make the environment less toxic for, you know, local politicians?
I think calling it out is the first thing. 99.9% of the people who contacted me that sort of the day after when it all started to hit the news were like, I'm a Labour supporter from, you know, wherever, but I read about this and I just wanted to say I'm sorry, or, you know, I don't agree politically, but this is just the most dreadful thing. The worst thought was, I'm really sorry to hear this, but there is no but. I'm really sorry to hear this, would have done very nicely. There is no but. And then the very, very, very small percent were, well, you're a Tory, you deserve it.
Yeah.
So what? I mean, it is a tiny minority, and I called them out on the day that happened. I retweeted them and said, really? What do you know? How do you know? Etc. Funnily enough, it all disappeared. Absolute keyboard warriors who have their 5-minute say, but if they're called out on it, have nothing to back up what they're saying.
I agree, because the advice, I don't know, I've been on a few of the like conservative women's things, and I've seen you on a couple of the Zoom ones, because that's the good thing about Zoom, is you can spy on other people. But a lot of the advice is less information about you. I'm not going to put my address this year on the ballot paper because of what happened with the abuse I got in 2019. That possibly could work against me when someone looks up the address, on the ballot paper, if there is an address there. But I think for safety reasons, I've made that decision. But like you say, people are like, I got one this week. Well, it doesn't matter about you as a person, Sam. It's, what you represent. You just think, what do I represent enough in order to receive this kind of level of abuse and aggression? But the calling out, it goes against the advice that we get given. So I get given, don't put information out about you that's too personal. Don't enter into this debate with people, and just block people. And I just think, well, all they do is they feel that satisfaction when you block them and you don't say anything back. That I do fight back, but it goes against what we're advised to do. And do you think that taps into, now I know this can sound a bit feminist, but do you think this taps into the whole be a good little woman and let's not say anything, like just put up with it and it will go away, because it doesn't feel like it's going away?
It's really hard. I would like to respond, but it's sometimes not a good look. I have seen lots of comments from serving councillors in Colchester that are really abusive online, like really abusive. That if you'd said in, I don't know, the workplace, or you said to a colleague or a boss online, you could find yourself in serious trouble. But somehow councillors arguing between councillors apparently makes it okay. It doesn't. It's never okay. It is never okay. And if you want to genuinely debate with me, then that is fine. I have had messages today. So I put out a tweet this morning saying, here are a few people who inspire me on social media from what I see, what they do on Twitter and various things. I have had responses, retweets and comments from across the political spectrum, from across, I don't know, the social spectrum, the race spectrum, everything. It didn't matter that I was conservative. It didn't matter, because I was saying something positive, getting my voice out there and supporting other women.
And that's what International Women's Day should be about, is like being a girl's girl and just supporting other women. And it doesn't matter, like colour or creed, it's we're all in it together. And that's why I like this 50-50 parliament, because it's not just 50-50 conservative women or Labour women, and we don't all necessarily agree on the approach of getting 50-50. And we'll touch on that in a minute. But we all want the same thing. And I think that's what people fall short on with politics, is not understanding that every single person who's involved with politics, whether it's at a local level or national level, we all do this because we want to better our community or our country. We just have very different opinions on how to go about doing it. Like parenting, most people, 99.9% of people want to be good parents. We just have different styles about it. So, and that's the same with politicians. But one thing that I'm dead against when it comes to the recruitment of women and encouraging women into politics is this idea of all women's shortlists. So I wanted to know what your opinion is, what your opinion of it is.
Yeah, I agree. If we're looking for equality, that's not the way to go about it, in my opinion. We should equally compete with whoever is up for the seat that we want, or for the job that we want, or anything else. All right, if the feminist movement is about anything, it is about equality. And that in no way seems equal to me. I don't want a foot up in that sense. I just want to be treated as an equal and to have an equal chance.
Well, yeah, this is, I mean, it's interesting. So someone raised this point of the problem is when you get selected, the people that are selecting you are naturally going to go towards a person who looks and sounds like them. And unfortunately, a lot of the decision makers in associations and things fall in the category at the moment of the, is it pale male stale? No, I don't like using the word pale. But, you know, so they're naturally going to select people that look and sound like them. And so it is going to be a little bit more difficult to be selected when it comes to that kind of criteria. But at the same time, even though the first hurdle is going to be a lot more difficult to jump over than our male peers, when we're sitting at the table, personally, I want to sit there knowing that the person sitting next to me knows what hurdles I've had to jump to get here, instead of I've just been parachuted in because I've got a wound. You know, I want them to go, okay, she's here because she's, you know, she knows what she's doing and she's a good candidate. Not, we need to make the numbers up.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than that. There is absolutely nothing worse than, as you say, feeling like you're there, the token female or the token whatever. So no, I couldn't be more against the all-female shortlist.
So what is the answer then? How are we going to encourage more women? Because we've obviously got a lot of negatives of why you wouldn't want to stand, but both of us have somehow worked out that it is the right thing to carry on fighting this good fight and to stand. So how can we show that though there are some difficulties, it's still worth it?
Basically, as I said, being a role model, doing what you do and doing it sort of bravely and just putting yourself out there, and as you say, calling things out when people are stupid enough to say the stupidest things. Call them out and go, hang on, as you say, I'm a human being, I'm a woman, I don't need this sort of abuse, and just keep at it. It's definitely going to be part of my campaign. The whole social media, the way it's used, the way Facebook is used, some of the community groups. I've had abuse from a community group on Facebook that are supposedly there for the community, but actually are run by political activists behind the scenes who take down posts, tell people they can't join this, that, and the other, just because of who you are. And that's not a community group.
I've had this, yeah, and even in the actual community group. So I've been a community activator, a community activist for, you know, forever and a day. Ever since I was an adult, I've been, you know, involved with the community. And then as soon as I first stood for election, and I always kept my voting, I mean, I'm out and proud now as a Conservative, but I always kept it quite quiet. And then everything changed. So the councillors were like, well, we can't have Sam in this community group and we can't have her doing this. And I'm even getting it now. And I just think, oh, you know, lay off. There's enough room for all of us. And if you're confident in what you're bringing to the table, you shouldn't really be worried about little old me and what I'm bringing to the table, because you need to have belief in yourself. But it's a bizarre one that a lot of the activists have just taken over a lot of groups. It used to be really good. And now it's that censorship. So you're not only fighting a campaign, you're fighting, possibly, may I put it out there, local media outlets, like we certainly are in Suffolk, because they're very left wing. Then you're fighting the community groups as well. And so people say to me, oh, you don't look like a Tory, or oh, you don't sound like a Tory. And it's like, well, it's because the idea that you've got of what a Tory is because the left-wing activists have taken over anything that you can see and has basically edited us out of existence. So, you know, people won't believe that you're the one that's been in charge of the bulb planting or the tree planting somewhere, or what, all the random stuff that we always do. People don't realise that you're a part of it, because somewhere along the line you get edited out. And it's an interesting thing to see, isn't it? Like going from a community point of view to then standing for election, how you're treated differently.
Yeah, you have groups where you are supposed to live. So there's one in particular that I live in. So their first tact was, you don't live in Newtown, I was like, I've lived in Newtown for 20 years. Oh, you know, it was like, well, how else can we get you out of this group? And yet there are plenty of councillors who don't live in the Newtown area, who are on this group, who post all the time. And it just becomes nonsense. And I am going to call that out. I am going to start calling that out this time and just saying, you know, why don't you look after your own area, comment on Colchester as you know, as a general place, but stop trying to, you know, almost paste yourself so thin across Colchester, answering every community query, being everywhere. You can't. You're going to be far more efficient just dealing with where you are and where you live and supporting the groups and what's going on there.
Do you live in the ward that you're going to be standing in?
I do, yes.
Yeah. And that's an area you stood in last time, isn't it?
It is, yes, Newtown and Christchurch. Very unusual ward, really. It's sort of spread over either side of Colchester town centre. So there's the Newtown bit, which is where I live, and that's actually about, well, 100 years plus old. So it was the new town for the factories and such like in Colchester and various things. You've got the new build in the middle, which was the army estate, and that's all now been built on as a housing estate. You've got various houses and flats there, and then you've got part of going up Lexton Road. That's the Christchurch bit. That used to be a separate ward. And yeah, it's a real mix of everything, and actually that makes it a really nice ward. It really, really does. It makes it, you know, generally a very friendly ward with lots of different opinions and lots of different people.
And that's exactly what you need. I mean, I must admit, sort of the selection process, I don't think people that aren't involved with politics really understands like the selection process. Like for me, it was, I knew that there were certain areas that I was interested in. I knew that other people were going to be interested in those areas as well. Also, I had to think about me as a person. Maybe women think about this far more than men, but I had to think about whether me as a person, I'm going to be able to represent a certain area the best I can, depending on who I am. So the area that I will be, well, I'm standing for 2 elections, but the area that I'm standing in is, you know, it's a diverse group of people. There are some council areas. I'm a council estate kid. There are some new developments. I live on a new development, and there's a lot of going on, and there's a lot of work, and it's an urban area, which best suits me. And I think when people contact you, I'm going to be able to relate to them. I'm going to be able to understand where they're coming from, and you will, living in your division, be able to do that. I had a snout at the division because I used to go to Colchester Sixth Form College, and I was also in the signals for the Territorial Army in Colchester. So I was like, I wonder if she's standing anywhere that I'm used to. What made you get into politics?
So Colchester itself was a little blob of yellow in a sea of blue for a very long time, with quite a famous Liberal Democrat, Bob Russell. And then we had Will Quince arrive on the scene, and who stood in 2015. That's the first time I sort of noticed the name, and I began to sort of read up and look at what was happening. And so I got involved a little bit, just literally on the day, driving the old folks to the polling station and, you know, whizzing around leaflets or doing whatever was required. And Will won the seat that year. And then 2017, I was doing the same thing, and my husband got a little bit more involved that time as well. And we were around at a friend's house with after leaflet drop fish and chips, and one of the local, she was then a councillor, came up and said, I think I need to talk to you. And I thought, okay, I didn't really see where that was going, but she sort of said, I think you should be a candidate. And, you know, the usual, when you'd never thought about this really at all before, was what on earth, to be honest. She's such a lovely lady. She's quite eccentric, and she's got a very interesting way of sort of talking to people. And she taught me around. She kept saying to me, people will understand you, people will relate to you, people, you know, and things like this. So she kept going anyway. And I said, well, look, okay, why don't I put myself forward for the process and see if they actually want me first of all? And I kind of got started from there.
That's brilliant. So you literally were asked to stand? Because there's like the campaign, isn't it?
I was asked to stand.
Yeah, that's brilliant, because
Yes.
I wasn't asked. I kind of was asked to stand, but I was ready to ask if I could stand, if that makes sense. So I was ready. And so, you know, this people saying that, oh yeah, I was asked to stand, or that there's that big campaign. It's interesting to hear that you've gone from that to now stand in. This is your second election?
Second. So if we want to do the ask her to stand, we need to be asking our friends, our neighbours and everything else, what, you know, are they interested? Would they like to come? Conservative women are very good for this sort of thing. We did have a group in Colchester. Through the unfortunate death of one of the members, it sort of folded a bit, but we now have, hopefully, a new group starting up. And yeah, it's just encouraging people. I mean, you said it yourself. You were told, oh, you don't look like a Tory. Well, what does a Tory look like? The other thing I've learned, I think perhaps the last general election taught me this, there's no such thing as unwinnable these days. Yeah. You know, the unwinnable seats are not unwinnable anymore. They're just not. But no, I mean, people make massive assumptions about who you are, where you come from, etc., where if they knew, and I'm quite prepared to turn around to people and actually tell them, I think they might be very surprised. They assume there's a certain amount of privilege, assume there's a certain amount of money, assume there's a certain amount of something or other that maybe there just isn't.
The privilege one always gets me. So people are like, well, you wouldn't understand. And I now say this, I never used to say it, but I feel like I have to say it, my parents, when they had me, they were homeless, so they were squatting, or they were on the streets. And so my cot when I was a babe was a banana box, and my stepdad used to call me the banana box kid, and that was just a bit of an in joke. And I just find it quite funny that people say, oh, you privileged person and everything. It's like, no, anything I've got is because I've just worked hard for it now. But you know, we were all born in very bizarre, I was born in very bizarre circumstances. But it's that assumption that I must have the bank of mum and dad and all this. And then you get, when you actually tell your story, they say, oh, well, you're in the wrong party then. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. It's me that's made the mistake here. Like, not that your ideas are different to my ideas. It's I'm the one that's made the mistake, and I'm the one that's got the problem. So in terms of campaigning, I really wish you all the success. And I hope, like you say, because things are just not safe seats or unwinnable and things like that anymore, I hope that this election will really show people that certain voters should not be taken for granted. I've noticed that I think it's a 12% shift from Labour to Conservative when it comes to women as well. And I think that's because, unlike 2017, where we just completely forgot about women in our manifesto, we're now showing that the party that had this lady here, and we are the natural party for women. And I think people are starting to see that, and I'm quite excited. I'm looking forward to, in a way, this election being over, because I'm already exhausted. There's all the mental preparation for it. But at the same time, I'm really, from a geeky point of view, excited to see what is going to happen. And I'm going to be looking out for areas like yours where I don't think it can be called, to be honest. And I think it very much will depend on the person.
I think we all have to remember that whether we get elected or not, I certainly had no expectations last time. But the time we'd actually gone through the selection process, I think I was actually finally and definitely confirmed about 6 weeks before the election. So I literally, you know, and we had the Brexit thing. And actually, I didn't poll that, you know, I didn't do that badly. I really didn't. But as Sue was saying to me, my sort of mentor in Colchester, we all have our place in the Conservative Party. It may or may not be as a councillor, but it certainly can be as a voice.
what if you could, so you're at the beginning of your career now, hopefully. In your whole career, what is the one thing you hope to achieve in politics?
I would, obviously, no one does this because they don't want to be a councillor. I would love to get elected at some point. I mean, I've come to this slightly later than perhaps some people. I'm late 40s, so maybe it will happen for me. I really, really hope it does. But if it doesn't, as Sue said, I have other things to offer. I can, offer to be part of Conservative Women organisation. I can give advice and try and be, a role model for anyone else who is thinking of standing. I have a very good friend who is standing in the Wivenhoe ward in Colchester, who is, well, literally half my age. We've become very good friends. She works at Essex Uni, and she always says to me, and it's quite sweet, really. She says, "Oh, you're such a good role model. You know how to do this. You know how to act in this situation." Da, da, da. And it's nice. It's nice to be able to be there for somebody.
I sense just from talking to you, I think you're going to be one of those role models in the Conservative Women, that's for sure, and help the younger ones along the way. Because whatever we do now, we're paving the way to make it easier for the next up and coming. But with regards to your age, you have seen the people that are in politics, haven't you? You're still about 40 years younger than the average councillor, I reckon. I sit there, I'm like, whoa, we've got some work to do when I look at my peers. Not a criticism on them. It's just, my running mate is in his 80s and he's great, but, he probably still has another couple of elections in him.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you want to say in addition to what we've covered, or any subjects?
Well, good luck to you. Let's maybe, whatever happens, we can do this again after the election and see what's happened.
Yep, and I hope that we actually get to meet in person.
That would be really, really nice, actually.
Yeah, let's do that. So. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It was very last minute. I wish you all the best for your campaign, and hopefully we'll get you back on at another date. So thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. And the next one will probably be back with Grumpy Old Ian, because I can't get anyone else to come on. I'm joking. So thank you for now.